Good afternoon or noon, I should say, and welcome to today's emergency episode of the Mary Trump Show with the Nerd Avengers. With me now is Jen Taub. Hey, Jen, how are you?
I'm
And
great. Is
I'm
anything going on?
wow. I just wanted to. I missed you guys, so I just wanted to check in. There's really nothing going on, right? Well, we're just gonna nerd out together about this and that, shoot the breeze, and I don't know. Maybe one of these days, before our great grandchildren are born, some white guy in America will be held accountable for something. Um, I know the initial reason I called this meeting to order was just I don't know. This decision by Judge, quote unquote, Judge Eileen Cannon has been called many things: outrageous, stupid, egregious, insane. I mean, the list is long. And we do need to talk about that because that has all sorts of implications and it puts this country on a very dangerous footing. But then Ron DeSantis, or Hades, as I like to call him, um, kidnapped a bunch of people at taxpayer expense, and nothing's going to happen to him. He may well get reelected. Um, Surrounding himself with these racist white people and his cops and his state troopers. And what one of the things I mean, the first thing about this, and I don't like being angry all the time. I don't like it when I see a picture of somebody I've never met and never will met, that my first feeling is hatred towards them. It's a very uncomfortable way to live one's life. But just on a human level, if you are not horrified, outraged, and heartbroken by this, then you don't belong in a democracy. You don't belong. You are unfit for society, except I guess the society of Florida and Texas and oh well, like half the country, I suppose. So, and the other shockingly awful thing about this is that this happened 60 a version of this happened 60 years ago, when a bunch of white segregationists pulled off what they call the reverse freedom ride and kidnapped a bunch of African American families and shipped them also to Cape Cod, as it turns out, to Hyannis, Highcliffe, which is where at the time John F. Kennedy was with his family, and they were deceived. They were lied to. They were told that there would be jobs and housing waiting for them. I don't know yet what the people on Martha's Vineyard, which for those of you who don't know is a small island off the coast of Cape Cod, which is actually where I am. I'm not on Martha's Vineyard. I'm on Cape Cod right now. And yes, we hear about Martha's Vineyard because it's where lots of rich people go and party. I mean, the Obamas hang out there.
But Dershowitz doesn't get invited to the parties
Dershowitz
anymore, which
can't even get into the library anymore. But but seriously, it's known as this very ritzy place. It's like the Cape Cod version of the Hamptons on Long Island. But it's September. High season is over. And if you've never been on Cape Cod in the winter, which I have, it's a very different place. It's bleak. It's quiet. There aren't jobs. It is not an easy place to live in the off season. So, it's just another instance in which this despicable white guy with power has free reign, not just to be as cruel as he wants, but to do it in a way that the fucking media are describing as politically shrewd. Yes, it's politically shrewd to be viciously racist and endanger people and their children. And I don't know how much people listening, watching have been following this, but these people didn't know. They thought they were going to Boston. They didn't know where they were when they got there. There was nobody waiting for them. They had to walk like 3 miles after not having eaten for 24 hours with their children and their belongings, not knowing what was waiting for them. Luckily, because there are still decent human beings in America, they were greeted with AP Spanish students who could communicate with them and translate for them. They were greeted by restaurant owners who were willing to donate food and people who were willing to provide shelter. And that's great. But it shouldn't have happened. And this is, again, I keep saying this, but it's true. All of this is of a piece. All of it. Because the cruelty is allowed to continue. The stochastic terrorism is allowed to be engaged in because people like DeSantis, people like Donald Trump, people like Greg Abbott continue to do these things out in the open with impunity and gain power. So what DeSantis is doing, if it isn't stopped, if he's not fucking arrested, right? If the 11th district doesn't side with the rule of law, then I honestly, guys, I don't know where we go from here, except to say that if the Democrats don't start talking about these issues in a way that is compelling to the American people, if they don't help the American people understand what it means when one person has a totally different legal standard from the rest of the 330 million of us, when one person can literally kidnap dozens of human beings simply because of the color of their skin and suffer no consequences except maybe re-election, then we are not in a good place. So I think, Waj, you don't have a lot of time. So is that true?
No, you just made that up. But if you want me to
No,
talk,
I thought you said you would stay.
No, you got to go, Waj. It's okay. Go ahead.
Well, exquisite rant to start the opening of the show, Mary.
Yeah, I cut it short because there are other people here who need to talk.
And if everyone wants to go first, go ahead. But I think there's so much that happened yesterday, and there's three things in particular you mentioned. What's happening, if you look at the big picture, is we're dealing with a fascist movement, and we're dealing with a radicalized and weaponized authoritarian movement. And we've seen that when Joe Biden finally dipped his toes in the water and called it out as such somewhat, and said that MAGA is a threat to democracy, it didn't hurt him. It helped his polls. And we just saw today that as a result of easing the student loan debt and with the Pell Grants, his numbers went up. And even on Fox News, double digits, right? When you made abortion a kitchen table issue, the numbers went up. When you look at defense of democracy as a kitchen table issues, the numbers goes up. And these three things that you've mentioned and you touched about, I think, are a preview of what will happen when the Republicans gain power. Number one, a story that was in the news for a day, for a hot second that left, that Leonard Leo, the right-wing architect, the godfather who's taken dark money to literally purge the courts of sane, responsible, rational judges and install extremists in black robes, great return on investment. I tip my hat off to Republicans. A 40-year plan gets you a Judge Cannon, where she's perfectly fine with ex-presidents kind of on their own declaring, highly confidential secret documents that expose our national security and the national security of foreign countries, and also expose our law enforcement and confidential informants on the ground. Go ahead. If you're a Republican, go for it. So you got the judges. The second thing is you have governors using and abusing their power to do whatever is necessary to impose their right-wing agenda, and also use human beings as public theater to gain the ticket to the nomination. That's exactly what's happening in Texas and Florida. I wrote about it 6 months ago, is that you're going to see Texas and Florida as the right-wing laboratories for right-wing ideas and policies that, if they catch fire, will then become the national blueprint for Republicans. Right. And so the story of DeSantis is the following. If these were white immigrants or Ukrainians, this is how it would be covered. DeSantis lied to immigrants, kidnapped them, trafficked them, period. Dot. But they don't look like us. They don't look like blue-eyed Ukrainians. They don't look like the family members of a lot of our colleagues in the media. And so, you can dispense with the humanitarian lens and not empathize and do a both sides analysis as to what you accurately described as cruelty. And there's another aspect here, which again would be leading news if it was Obama or if the suspects were black and brown Muslims. No one's talking about. Yesterday, a woman was arrested for making a violent threat against Boston Children's Hospital. A couple of days ago, a Chicago man was arrested for killing his wife and badly injuring his daughter because he was radicalized by QAnon. In the past 7 days, Donald Trump, on his Truth Social platform, has aggressively promoted all-out QAnon conspiracies and Q-linked accounts. Ashley Babbitt was radicalized by QAnon to attack the January 6th Capitol. And in the last month, ever since Libs of TikTok and Daily Wire's Matt Walsh started falsely saying that Boston Children's Hospital was doing hysterectomies on children, there's been an increase in death threats. Lo and behold, fast forward 1 month, lady got arrested yesterday. So what's going to happen? You mentioned stochastic terrorism. I think it's just terrorism. So we saw the judiciary, we saw governors who use and abuse their power, and then we saw the use of intimidation, threats, and terror. All of those stories that have happened in the past day, Mary, I think are connected and reveal to us exactly what you're saying, is that if Joe Biden and the Democrats and all of our mainstream institutions do not use the language to accurately describe this threat and confront it, they're giving us a sneak preview of what's going to happen. And I know Jen has a lot to say about the judiciary. When it comes to the judiciary, this is a sneak preview. Look, Donald Trump, who's been impeached twice, was able to put 3 Supreme Court justices on the court, hundreds of federal court judges. And what we're going to get, in my fear is, and the last thing I'll say, is a coup done in black robes.
Absolutely.
And Moore v. Harper is the case that haunts me. And especially after Judge Kennan did what she did. I know we could talk about it later, but Moore v. Harper is the case at the Supreme Court. I think they have the votes to pretty much say, hey, Republican state legislatures, you can put in your fake electors. And even if Joe Biden wins in 2024, guess what? Battleground states will give it to DeSantis or Trump. And that's that. That's the coup.
Can I just add something to what was said? Only because before we go to the sort of legal realm, I think it's of a piece with exactly what he said.
Sure. I just want to clarify one thing really quickly, Cliff. Just when I said first of all, I agree with you. Watch, it's terrorism. What DeSantis is doing is terrorism. What's happening at Boston Children's Hospital is terrorism. I was talking specifically about Donald's response when he was asked, what if he's indicted? And he basically said, we're going to come and kill all of you.
Yeah, he said that.
I'm paraphrasing, of course.
It was like a mob boss, Mary. It was like a mob boss.
It was that kind of a
somebody on Twitter was like, "Yeah, nice country you got there." Right. Yeah. Right. So anyway, Cliff, I just wanted to.
I don't want to. I know Jen has some important stuff to say on the judiciary, but I feel like this is important because it connects to what Waj just said, which is just right there with everything that he was talking about with the violence that occurred yesterday. We also had a member of Congress kick somebody, assault somebody for asking them questions. And that, of course, that member of Congress is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Almost who else could it be? I suppose actually it could be Lauren Boebert, Jim Jordan, Louis Gohmert.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
The list is long, but it's fitting that it was her.
But Voters for Tomorrow, which is a young Gen Z group that is advocating, for their rights. And literally, they were asking questions about why Marjorie Taylor Greene will not protect them in their schools, that they have to go to school every day. I, as somebody who have children who have to do these drills that make me sick to my stomach, why they're doing these drills and why nobody cares about them, why they have to go to schools and worry about somebody walking in, one disgruntled person with an assault rifle. And while these two folks, Santiago Meyer, who's the executive director, and Mariana Pecora, and I believe they're both Latina descent. I know he is from Mexico originally. Were asking these questions. Not only did she insult them and tell them they didn't know anything about America, other them right away. Yep. And not only did she tell him to go back to whatever country he was from or leave this country if he didn't like the Second Amendment, and tried to make the statement the Second Amendment is what is going to protect us. Yeah, 13-year-olds are going to bring assault rifles to school to protect themselves from, right. But she then, once Mariana was in front of her, she kicked her. She kicked her in the back of her leg with whatever that hoof type foot thing is that Marjorie Taylor Greene has, which must hurt. That clothing. Okay, I'll stop. And then kicked her a second time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, and this is where the impunity comes, as far as I'm concerned. If you do not hold these people accountable and punish them, like DeSantis, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted the video.
Yep.
Because she expects nothing will happen, but she'll gain votes from it.
That's
I
right.
kicked a young Latina for asking me questions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all positive. So
Yep.
now, as I said, I'd be quick. I will shut up, but I just wanted to tie that into what Wash is, because again, this is a part of that. The violence with impunity is coming from within the House, quite literally, at this point in time.
And this is something that Donald's been doing his whole life. He just pushes the envelope. He pushes the envelope. When he gets a little bit of pushback, he pulls back, but then nothing happens. So, I mean, obviously that was the problem with the first impeachment, and it just gets worse and worse because the media starts to normalize these things. And one of the worst things that happened in that she's so disgusting in that video was the two thugs who on her behalf basically said, how dare you block a member of Congress? First of all, the fact that she gets any respect at all is disgusting, but blaming them for the fact that she kicked constituents, that was one thing. And that her argument was like, gun-free zones kill people. Because in addition to being a grotesque human being, she's also really stupid. Jen, I know you were going to talk about the legal stuff, but I want to also put things in this context. I spoke with David Korn yesterday, who just came out with an excellent book called American Psychosis, and it's basically the history of how the Republicans have embraced extremism to their own benefit. And alongside that, how the Democrats have failed to push back, whether it's Dukakis or Hillary Clinton, either they don't understand the essence of the attacks leveled against them. You're not American, you're not a patriot, what have you. You like murderers, you like rapists, you set them free. Or the media fixates on the fact that Hillary Clinton called Donald supporters, half of them, put them in a basket of deplorables. They focus on that and say, how dare you be so mean to these racists and misogynists and white supremacists, and they completely forget about the racism, misogyny, and the white supremacy. So I think all of that is also something else that has tended towards this moment where it's this unbroken line. And it's not that things have always been this bad. It's that because things have always happened this way and never been challenged, things are so much worse now because the ground has been softened for the kinds of behavior we're seeing. And you could say, well, it's bad that DeSantis did this, and it's the same thing that happened it's 60 years ago. Well, you know what? The fact that it's happening 60 years later is so much fucking worse. Because it's 2022. Anyway, sorry, another mini rant, but I also wanted to add that layer to the conversation. But legally speaking, Jen, wow, we are in serious trouble.
Yeah, and before I do the legal technicalities here, I just want to imagine if any of us, if we together right now, Charlotte, Cliff, Wadge, and you, Mary, and I decided that we were going to pool some money together, and we were going to go down to Texas and find, even 5 people, family of 5, and hop on a plane with them up to New York or Martha's Vineyard or, Hilton Head. Maybe that'd be their place, Hilton Head, whatever. Would you like to know what would happen to us criminally? Then
Yes.
yes. Okay. So, and if we made it, so the deal is under, as you heard the lawyer, maybe you heard or read about, there's a lawyer on Martha's Vineyard who says, first of all, we've got some state law kidnapping. because the way this was done was told people, hey, we're going to transport you to Boston where there are these jobs. None of that was true. And they actually took them someplace. They didn't know where they were going. So we've got the state law kidnapping. We also have different federal law potential charges, including, the statute that forbids taking, it's call it alien smuggling or domestic transporting or harboring. I think it's probably just the smuggling and transporting, but it's a federal criminal offense to transport or move or attempt to transport someone. But again, this would apply to people who allegedly have come here in violation of the law. It seems like these folks came in here to assert legal claims to remain here, but that's not what we don't know that for sure. And in this case, if we did what they did, they are calling these unauthorized people who are here without authorization. There's another thing. The kidnapping in and of itself, you might say, well, that's a state law claim. But we have a RICO statute. And under the RICO statutes, RICO makes criminal doing things, including a pattern of kidnapping or a pattern of certain types of human trafficking. There's some technicalities on the transporting of aliens, but there's no technicality here that this was kidnapping. And if we did what these folks did, I think we would see ourselves indicted and arraigned very quickly. And the longer the Justice Department waits, the more Merrick Garland, as much as I've been praising him recently, starts to look like Judge Cannon. There cannot be two systems of justice. Similarly, who is this issue with the same thing that we said about Marjorie Taylor Greene? Cliff mentioned kicking someone on the sidewalk. A member of Congress is a human being. I mean,
Well, I'm not sure about her, but generally speaking,
no, but this is the whole thing. Some people get more humanity than others.
Right.
And this is you're treating human beings like pawns in your political game, or someone walking down the sidewalk can be kicked. No. And I don't know, I don't know how in the world we're accepting these norms and this inhumanity, and that some people get more. It goes to your uncle. Some people's feelings matter.
Right.
He's extremely emotional, extremely volatile. We've got to be so concerned about his poor feelings. The rest of us, fuck your feelings.
Well, exactly. Democrats, fuck your feelings, but our feelings need to be protected. And just another thing, Jen, about the basis of the cruelty is the dehumanization, and the fact that in both of these instances, we start with the false premise that these people are here. They call them illegal immigrants, which is so offensive. That people can't be illegal, and as you said, as far as we know, they are human beings who probably made enormous sacrifices to get here, and came here legally to seek asylum, which anybody on the planet is allowed to do. They may not get it, but they're allowed to ask for it. So by starting with this premise that they are not allowed to be here in the first place, I think that that's a slippery slope. And the same thing with, in the same vein with Greene, it's like, I'm a congressperson. You're not allowed to block me, so I can kick you. And these people get afforded these protections that, as you said, Jen, would never be afforded. If the five of us went down there, what would the word for that be? We would be a criminal gang or something, right? But because
one of us kicked Marjorie Taylor Greene, I can only imagine what would happen to us.
Well, if I did, that would be something. But
I'm not saying it wouldn't be deserved. Not that I advocate that kind of thing. Never violence.
Never.
I need Guantanamo. So just send me halal meat and make sure I get Wi-Fi. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I'm not sure they do that at Guantanamo. I think we'll all be neighbors at Guantanamo if things keep going south. So Jen, do you want to talk a little bit about the
Yeah, I want
legal
to add something.
implications?
There were children there too, right? So I'm just, you start doing trafficking in children. I just, it's not funny. Like this idea, haha, let's send them to where the rich Democrats vacation. These are people who are terrified, didn't know where they were going. That can't be, and that's, the cruelty is the point. The performance is the point. And so, where are the adults in the room?
Well, Nikki Fried has made a, I don't know what it's called. Nikki Fried, I don't know what her position in Florida is, but she was running for the Democratic nomination for governor in
She's
Florida.
the agricultural commissioner, I believe.
Thank you. That's right. She did win a statewide race there, but Charlie Crist won in the primary. But she's still in a position in Florida state government, so she has made an appeal to the DOJ. I don't know what her standing is necessarily, but good, because Jen, as you said, yeah, okay, there's a lot going on, and I know they're trying to flood the zone with their awfulness, but there are a lot of people who work for the DOJ. How can this not be addressed immediately?
I mean, why wouldn't, this seems like a great business proposition for people who either genuinely care about immigrants and want to find them jobs actually in Boston, or people who don't care and are actually trying to traffic children or traffic, adults, or just exploit labor. Why wouldn't they go, holy shit, we could do this?
Why?
I just don't understand why, if you do something brazenly and out in the open, it's no longer a crime.
But again, that is one of the very few contributions Donald has made. He has modeled that kind of behavior, because I think we talked about this a couple of days ago. For people who are inclined to give Donald the benefit of the doubt, and sadly there are millions of people still willing to do that, and he doesn't deserve it. I mean, he's proven that he doesn't deserve it, but if you're so inclined, and you don't know much except that all of these charges are flying around, all of these accusations are flying around. I mean, Charlotte, I would think that their reaction would be, not, that can't be possible. Clearly somebody's out to get him, because there's so many things he's being charged with. It just can't be real.
Yeah, that's been the problem since 2015, right? I think I have a really good friend. His name is Connor Shaw. He worked on Hillary's campaign. And the problem that they came up against again and again is it feels like you're laying on a bed of nails, right?
Mhm.
There are so many distractions that people can't just focus on one thing. And after a while, it feels like there must be some kind of conspiracy going on. So for conservatives, and especially conservatives in the South, who are already primed not to believe that the media is doing right by conservative politicians, they believe this is a witch hunt. They believe that all of these agencies are coming after Trump as some kind of coordinated conspiracy to undo the great conservative American project. And so I think that's been my worry, is that rather than focus on investigations, we should be focusing on things like abortion, like economic equality, the things that people really care about in their day-to-day lives. Because this shit, I don't think it's going anywhere. I really don't. As soon as the special master stuff happened this past week or past 2 weeks, I thought, of course, that was what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And people get exhausted by this. They're so exhausted of getting a push notification from CNN or MSNBC or whoever the hell telling them Trump is being investigated for this, and here's the latest in this investigation, and ultimately goes nowhere. This guy has been impeached twice, mm-hmm. And nothing has happened.
Yeah, but the thing I will push back on is that I agree that Democrats shouldn't make this a centerpiece of anything, because technically speaking, and rightly so, it's outside of their purview. I mean, they can't bring charges against Donald. However, that doesn't mean the DOJ shouldn't be doing its fucking job. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think the bed of nails is actually a really good analogy, because there are so many nails. Each one individually is dangerous, but you have so many spread out, then you know what? You can lie on a bed of nails. But you So it doesn't seem that bad, right? Whereas one, you lie on one nail and you're in a lot of trouble. So again, I think it's a strategy. Flood the zone. Be open about your corruption and your criminality, and people aren't going to think it's that big a deal. So the DOJ, however, does not have the luxury of falling into that trap because it's the Department of Justice, and as what we're fighting against is what Judge Cannon, I hate calling her judge, but whatever, Cannon has made clear is that there is a very virulent strain of in this country towards making sure that there is a special system of justice just for Donald Trump because he's so awesome. Hey, Waj, you wanted to...
Mary, can I point something out real quick? I'm so sorry.
No,
I feel like
no
this hasn't been talked about enough in the public sphere.
Mhm.
But, millions of Americans, millions of US citizens live and work alongside undocumented people.
Mhm.
There are 12 million undocumented people in the United States. I grew up in Texas. We lived alongside undocumented families. We went to school with them. We worked alongside them. This is already being done, and there's been no issues. So,
exactly. Yeah, I saw you tweet about that, and I'm glad you brought that up because exactly, it's nothing new. It's never been a big deal. So why now?
Cruelty the base.
It was, going off of Charlotte's point, this is another example where Democrats can learn from their previous mistakes and they have an opportunity. As Charlotte was saying, there's 11 to 12 million undocumented individuals in this country who work right beside us, and we need them. If they leave, the country will collapse. 4 million of those 11 to 12 million are children. Okay. Yep. And the Democrats have made themselves weak and vulnerable on this issue because they don't push back or fight back. They don't frame the narrative. And so what Republicans have done very successfully is that they make Democrats seem weak on this issue and weak on national security. And they keep saying amnesty, amnesty. Now, Democrats, as I predicted, and unfortunately I was right, I was on this great other podcast, In the Thick, co-hosted by Julio Ricardo Varela and Maria Hinojosa. They thought, 2020, Biden Democrats, they'll finally do immigration reform. And what I said was, nope, they'll punt it to 2024, because what they'll say to the rest of us is, hey, do you want the Inflation Reduction Act? Do you want Build Back Better? Well, choose, 2010. Do you want healthcare? Choose. And meanwhile, by making yourself vulnerable on this human rights issue, Republicans are able to get away with these increasingly cruel, absurd, and I agree with what Jen said, illegal. I mean, if you look at the news now, what they're saying is that there was a lady hired by DeSantis who fraudulently induced these immigrants to get on the plane, promising them work and expedited visas, right? Mm-hmm. So not only is it kidnapping and trafficking, it's also fraud. Yep. And the reason
didn't somebody have like a camera too? Wasn't there like a videographer going along for the ride? He must have hired somebody to do that too, right?
So the thing, but the reason why they're able to get away with it, Mary, is because Democrats have taken this, I think, absurd and harmful position that we have to court this mythical median voter who is terrified by these immigrants, and we're not strong enough to counter this narrative about the invasion, so we'll keep punting it. And as we've seen with abortion, is that once they actually put the stake in the ground, once you actually articulate your values, once you fight the good fight, once you actually show passion, and once you then attack Republicans, what happens? That frames the discourse, especially when your party is in power. So this is an opening, an opportunity for Joe Biden and Democrats to finally stop being hijacked by bad faith Republicans on this particular issue, do the right thing, throw down, say, this has been a problem. This is what we're doing. We need to have, security, but this is cruelty. This is illegality. And this is not the country that we want. And I want that type of robust Dark Brandon to rise on this issue that has risen on abortion and defense of democracy. I think the more this is in the news and the more that people see how cruel it is. And I agree with Charlotte. This is just the beginning. Mm-hmm. They're going to go worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't buy that, you're not paying attention. And so this is an opening. And again, I hate saying this because I know some people might be like, the brown guy is always talking about racism and white supremacy on the show. Him and Danielle, get over it. We live in a post-racial society. I voted for Obama once. I love the Beyonce. But go back and look at the coverage of Ukrainian immigrants. And the reason why so many of our colleagues kind of are so dispassionate about this wanton cruelty against Latin immigrants is because they don't look like me. They're brown skinned. They don't look like my grandfather or grandmother. And I think this is where the rest of us really need to put this in the forefront, because if we don't do anything, wait till 2024, ladies and gentlemen, and this will be a common problem, and the dehumanization will be so rampant. And finally, I'll say, to really put a pin on this, I was at the Auschwitz. I visited Auschwitz a couple years ago, and we were talking about Donald Trump with the guard at the Auschwitz Museum. The guard said, "I come here and I volunteer because my grandfather escaped, and I feel like I owe him a duty and his generation a duty." We're talking about Donald Trump, the dehumanizing the language specifically against Mexicans and immigrants. And this guy on his own in Poland looks at me very soberly and goes, "It always begins with language.
Mhm.
That's how it starts. And then language is the first, and so I say this not to terrify us, but 11 million people, human beings, children, if this is what they're doing to people now and they see them just as cargo, what's going to happen in 2024? Which is why I believe there's an opening here for Joe Biden with the dark Brandon imaging, and also with the type of passion that if he really doubles down on this issue, I think it will be a plus and help Democrats in the long run really pass immigration reform. Thank you for letting me on that
And
rant.
listen, if people are watching the show and think that only Waj and Danielle talk about racism, you need to pay more attention. And also, hey, white people out there,
That's true.
racism should be the most important issue you're talking about too. So get on board.
I'm a blue-eyed guy whose family is largely from the Ukraine. I even just said the wrong thing, Ukraine, as you're saying, Wash. So I should just be paying attention to that. And yet, racism is part of everything in this country. And if you don't talk about it, you're missing the big picture.
Exactly. Because, then it becomes, anyway, but
if you've got the blue eyes, that means there's some Lithuanian or Latvian mixed in with the Ukrainian. That's kind of where my people are.
Yeah, probably. There's some of that. There's some Romanian in there, and there's even some German in there. I guess we were some self-haters.
We're all going to do a DNA test after the show, but for the time being, Cliff, I want to build on something that Waj said. Yes, right now it's immigration, and it has been for a long time. I mean, let's face it. But by deferring conversations about voting rights, by deferring conversations about gay rights, by not holding the fucking vote on marriage equality now instead of after the midterms, by not centering conversations about trans people, by allowing the Republicans time after time to create the narrative and make the fight asymmetrical, the Democrats have. I'm not going to question their intentions. I get it politically. I think it's absurd. I think you never ever defer human rights for a political agenda. But by doing that, I mean, it's not like they've gotten any good results, right? Because there is no Voting Rights Act anymore. Trans people are in more danger than they've ever been at any time in our history. Look what just happened at Boston Children's Hospital. They are coming after marriage equality. And oh my goodness gracious. Hi, sweetie pie. You're adorable. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. I used to have ones your size. They're big.
Wait, who's that? Which one is that, Waj?
That's the pandemic baby, Khadija.
She like Hello Kitty, will you ask? Because I love Hello Kitty.
Oh yeah, she loved. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for sake of cuteness, you can see my 3-year-old daughter since she's the pandemic baby, refuses to wear clothes, wears pajamas everywhere she goes. So don't judge me, but we just let her roll with it.
Do any adults wear clothes anymore? Don't we all wear pajamas?
Hi, kid.
She's quite
gone.
adorable. But
Jeffrey Toobin had that problem. Okay, I'm stopping.
You should never have started that. But anyway,
I shouldn't have gone there. I'm sorry.
I think we needed a little cuteness overload because times are grim. But the point being, Cliff, that it's a terrible strategy, and what, as Waj suggests, the Democrats need to do is counter the cruelty with humanity and just help people understand this isn't about immigration. It's about your fellow human beings who have as many rights as you do to
Yep.
not just be on the planet, but thrive and be given assistance. And they need to do that with every single class of people that is being attacked, that's under assault from the right, that's being dehumanized by the right, because as that guy at Auschwitz said correctly, it starts with language and
Right.
it only devolves from there.
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with the point that you made, which is throw politics aside. You always stand up for human rights. I don't care. You stand in, you stand in that breach. You stand that you protect people who need protecting. And if we can't do that, then we're not a democratic society. We're not deserving of our system anyhow. Let's start with that. And we've failed that test in many places for most of our history, which is shameful. But politically, to jump off of Wash's point, and because the two issues, that I worked the most on for years, right? I did a ton of work on the issue of gun safety, and I did a ton of work on the issue of abortion rights. And the Democratic side, to hide in a corner, to not talk about it, to sort of say, well, let's find a moderate position, like we're okay, we'll have the Hyde Amendment. You get to have a conscience clause. Do I get to have a conscience clause about my money going to the Iraq war? I do not. You, however, whoever you are, get to have that about abortion. Like those positions make you weak. All right. They don't attract anybody. They don't inspire anybody. And as it took the Hobbs decision, sadly, for Democrats to realize we're a 70% on the right side of this issue.
And also, Cliff, that by making those kinds of compromises, you end up hurting the people who most need protection.
Of course.
The people you allegedly are wanting to represent. And that, yes, I think also makes it even more messy.
No, human rights is first and foremost. But then the fact that they wouldn't, and I've been in these rooms where I try to make these arguments and politically background checks getting 90% of the support. Like, well, people don't vote on it. And I'm like, well, they don't vote on it because you don't make the argument. You don't tell them that when you don't do a background check, that criminal, that person who's dangerously mentally ill, that person, whoever it may be, can just walk in and get whatever weapon they want. And if we don't make the argument, it's going to seem very abstract to them, and it's not going to seem dangerous to them, and they're not going to understand the stakes. And we did the same thing with abortion. We let them get away with this partial birth crap, with this, late-term abortion, babies at the last minute. There's 1,000, we're a country of 300 plus million people. There are 1,000 abortions every year after the 21st week, 1,000 only.
And why?
In a country. Why? And why does that happen? Because women are just like, hey, I think I'm going to have an abortion today. Clearly that 1,000, that minuscule number are people in such horrific situations in terms of their health, their life, the fact that this story that just went public, this baby that, wasn't going to have a skull, and this woman had to spend $14,000 to fly from Louisiana to New York. I did a story here that we ended up making national about 6-7 years ago on a woman here who knew that she was going to have a stillborn child at 23 weeks. Ohio would not let her have an abortion. She had to go to Chicago and spend $3,000. She could afford to do that. Like, that's what's happening after 21 weeks. It's not like, hey, party time, let's all have abortions. And when we let them define it that way and hide in a corner, then a lot of people think partial birth abortion is a real thing.
Well, that's exactly right. It's another
real thing.
It's another language thing, and the legislature should not be defining medical terms. And it's just another instance in which we've lost control of the argument. Cub reporter Brian Karam has joined us.
Can I just say one last thing though, just on this? I promise to be very quickly before Cub reporter Brian Karam comes. They just had the exit polling come out from Kansas. Okay, on that referendum on abortion rights. We had the highest youth turnout in the history of Kansas for this primary election. And the share of the vote that was the women's vote went up by 8 points. Okay, this is very simple stuff to understand. Now, Cub reporter Brian Carroll.
With the shades.
Of course. But no.
Well, Another day in the soup. What?
What is going on,
I
Cub
can't hear
Reporter?
Cub Reporter, Brian Caron.
I think, in regards to what we're talking about today, I think the biggest thing I can add from here is that there's nothing to add from here. It's
Awesome.
shocking to me that on a day that we're talking about what we're talking about, that the Biden administration is once again, it's a small group of people that are responsible for the communications from this president, and addressing these issues are important for the American people. I think that we've seen. And today we're not talking about those issues. And
Brian,
are
I just
getting
want to
answers about.
I just want to clarify something. If we're talking about the decision by Judge Cannon, is it possibly a reluctance to weigh in on something that has to do with the DOJ? Not that I'm not using that as an excuse, but do you think that's the rationale behind their staying
No.
quiet?
I think that's always the rationale, but it's what the question is not reacting to this, but how is the Democratic Party, and the president is the head of that party, how will he react in the fall? The biggest answer I can give to that is the question that I asked him on the South Lawn a couple of days ago. He remains confident that the Democrats are going to retain the House and the Senate, and thus push through legislation that will make things like what happened today less likely to occur. But it's not a message that this administration delivers very well,
Or at all.
And in fact, if the or at yes, to your point, yeah, or at all, and to your point, if the president is far more effective at communicating his intent and his desires than his staff, and the staff needs to get out of his way, and he needs to be involved in press briefings, and he needs to have he's had more press conferences outside of the United States than he's had inside the United States. And they just seem to think that the issues that bother the American people the most are issues that they don't want him to speak about. And that's frustrating, not only as a reporter, but as a voter. And of course, things behind me are also frustrating, but that's part of life here in the soup.
Yeah, it actually is a little hard to hear you. Okay, so Jen, we haven't really talked in depth yet about the legal quagmire of Cannon's decision, which for those of you who don't understand what it means for her to have rejected the DOJ's request that that those 100 highly classified and sensitive documents be carved out essentially of the proceedings, and giving it over to a special master, which just in technical terms means she's a fucking coward and doesn't want to have to do the dirty work. So she's delegating it to this guy, Judge Deary, from New York. She's also opened the door for letting anybody on Donald's team see these highly classified and sensitive documents. So, which theoretically could be Giuliani or any of his other numerous hack lawyers who don't have security clearances. And Jen, I think one of the most the decision is just beyond comprehension, execrable. But what makes it worse is that we don't have confidence that if the DOJ appeals, the 11th district court judges will make the right decision either.
So it's funny. I mean, I was wondering, Mary, when you mentioned that Donald's lawyers might be able to look at this, I was wondering why he had recently brought on 2 new lawyers to his team, MBS and Vladimir Putin.
Zing, zing. Well played, Jen.
I'm sure it's fine.
Sure. But he did actually bring on a new lawyer who's getting paid $3 million. So that should tell us something. That's information. I don't know what it means, but it's that.
Yeah, so
well,
it's
I think, Jen, I think you're onto something, but don't give him any ideas, please.
$3 million. There's gonna have to be another Stop the Steal fundraiser again soon if he's paying $3 million.
I want to. Dahlia is not with us physically, but she's with us in spirit, and she wrote a piece for Slate. I think she co-authored it with what's his middle name? Stern. At any rate, let me just kind of tell you what her thesis is. Or actually, let me take
it's Mark Joseph Stern, by the way. Mark Joseph Stern.
Yep. And she wrote this last week, and I'm going to just paraphrase it in my own way, which is, it doesn't matter how many times Neil Katyal or Larry Tribe or you, Mary Trump, or Barb or anyone else out there says what a fucking idiot or craven or corrupt or illogical or baseless this piece is, or anything this judge does. It's not going to change anything. And one of the problems that we have as progressive thinkers generally, and members, of the Democratic Party, is we keep thinking if we just keep talking rationally and tell people why they're wrong on the law, they're going to go, oh, holy shit, you're right. No, they're not that dumb. They don't want to be right on the law. She did not do, she is doing what she's doing either because she genuinely doesn't trust the FBI or because she got the job from Donald and she's waiting for her day when she can become maybe a Supreme Court justice or even better, a Fox News or now CNN anchor or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whatever's going on, she's not going to change. And I'm glad, though, it's really good that we talk about and read the decision and see what's troubling in it. Mm-hmm. That only matters with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And that only matters if they care about following arguments or not. I'm going to assume that we are where we are. The 11th Circuit's going to affirm her. Let's just assume the Supreme Court is going to do what it's going to do. The only hope we have is that this special master, Deary, acts quickly on the 100 documents that he says these are stamped with the markings that the subpoena called for. There's no possessory interest here. And I think these should go immediately to DOJ, or the DOJ should be released from its shackles and be able to use these for a full-on criminal investigation. And then I'm hoping when Donald appeals, that process isn't so slow. But the reality is Garland was not going to indict anybody in connection with this before the midterms. Right. And the lesson we should draw from this is not look how dumb this judge is and look at these arguments. The lesson we should draw is Donald fucking Trump put in a lot of bad, corrupt, unqualified, and partisan judges into the federal judiciary. And we need more judges because these are positions for life. And if they're not going to be impeached, which they probably won't, they at least need to be diluted. And that's kind of my view of the world.
Yeah, that's exactly where this should go. And Charlotte, that's why the Democrats need to get better at having that conversation and put it in human terms. Jen's right. Nobody gives a shit that my head keeps exploding or we keep talking about how bad the decision on the law is because, whatever. And it's not going to change anything. But if we help people understand how dangerous this is, that one of the problems here is that we know that some of the documents had to do with a foreign nation's nuclear capabilities. We don't know if it's ally or enemy, but in those documents are almost certainly information about human sources. So we have around the planet now people who are terrified that they're going to get outed. We have people who will not be doing their jobs, will not be providing us with information that may be vital to our security interests because they might be uncovered as spies. So the human toll is absolutely necessary to help people understand because it isn't just about, she just read the statute wrong.
Yeah, that's right. And I would encourage folks to fill in the blanks. This is one of the few times when Democrats should really feel comfortable just letting their imaginations run wild on something like this. I mean, because this really is very fucking serious. We don't know exactly what intelligence was stolen. We have no idea. It could have been nuclear secrets. It could have been the placement of names of intelligence assets, including intelligence agents in foreign countries. We don't know what Trump stole, or if he sold it, or if he traded it for favors. We don't know exactly what happened here. And so I would encourage folks to really lean into that, every hypothetical that's possible from this, because we shouldn't even be having this conversation. These documents should not have left their places of security. They should never have been out of custody. And he should never have lied about having them, and his lawyer should never have lied about having them. So let's really put the screws to this person and let the American people know what's at stake here, which is nothing less than the safety of this country.
Yeah, I just want to say something really quickly. Racists aren't welcome here. Get the fuck out. This is our house. You're not allowed to be here. Go away and fuck off. Thank you. Waj, go ahead.
What Charlotte said is on point, because what's going to happen, and this is a strategy, and I feel like Democrats, if they lose sight of this, they're going to get caught, is Judge Cannon is part and parcel of the right-wing ecosystem, an extremist in a black robe appointed by Donald Trump who did her bidding. Okay, we know how the Supreme Court's going to behave, because they are behaving exactly the way that they said that they will behave. Like, take them literally and seriously. The strategy here is to muddy the waters, to pollute the narrative, which is crystal clear, that Charlotte just said, and we'll repeat in a second, that, oh, it's a deep state conspiracy, and some of these documents he could have taken, and should he have taken that? All that is nonsense. What you got to just cut through the bullshit and say that Donald Trump took highly classified information and national security secrets and exposed our national security, our law enforcement, and our allies. No one is above the law. You got to keep saying that. No one is above the law. Donald is not above the law. No one is above the law. We will hold him accountable again and again and again and again. Because the strategy here from the Republican point of view is delay this till November, delay this till after the midterms. We might take over the House. If we take over the House, immediately we're going to do a blitzkrieg of bullshit trials and investigations on Hunter Biden's laptop. The media, as we know, it's like a dog from Up. They're going to chase the squirrel, like Hunter Biden, laptop. And all of a sudden, this is a massive story. The former president of the United States took hundreds of classified documents to his home, unsecured. We know one of them, as you said, has the nuclear secrets of a foreign country. We know that Rick Perry, yes, that Rick Perry, old school reference, authorized the secret sale of nuclear information to foreign countries, right? We don't know what this country is. I have some ideas. I won't mention it here, but I might, I have some ideas. And the fact that Donald Trump was repeatedly reminded Mary to return the documents, and he didn't. And he lied about it. And his counsel lied about it. So it's so damning, and it's so infuriating, me just repeating the facts to you, that any other person would be in jail right now. Any other person. And so what Democrats have to do is, like, I want Democratic leadership, while this is happening with the special master, to be on television and remind the rest of us every single day, Donald Trump took highly classified information. No one is above the law. He exposed national security. He's a security threat. Republicans are a security threat. No one's above the law. And what we've seen, and this is why it'll help them in the midterms, according to a poll that came out last month, we mentioned it on your show, I have to mention it again, the number one issue, a kitchen table issue, even above abortion, which is now number 2, is the threat to democracy. And so I just wanted to double down on that, is because I see what the Republicans are doing, and I hope again and again and again we are not Charlie Brown to their Lucy, and we finally learn. And if you don't tell your story is being told to you by others. And if Democrats aren't telling the story is going to be the deep state is after Trump. They muddied the waters, and all of a sudden it's going to be a mixture of, like, just weird, different, both sides equivalents. Republicans might get the House, Hunter Biden's laptop.
They'll bring back Benghazi, for Christ's sake. So,
real Solyndra. Let's go real old school.
Yeah, we're coming up to the end, but I just want to give everybody a couple of minutes to talk about whatever you think needs to happen in the so, for example, I think that what Waj is saying is so important, because failing to act leaves room to convince people that what Donald did was fine, that he had, and that's what this judge is doing. He had every right to these documents, is the implication of her actions, or it gives him room to stoke more division, incite more violence, etc. So, Cliff, what are your thoughts about
Look,
another fabulous week in America?
Yay, America! We're awesome. My thoughts are that, people who pay attention to politics constantly don't understand how most people see all of this.
Right.
And I feel like all of us know some of these folks. I do. So, I assume the rest of you do. And, they were once Republicans and they're kind of still Republican. And, in 2016, they were looking for, maybe they were flirting with voting for Hillary or even Gary Johnson, but they weren't going to be a Trump vote. But they just needed that thing to push them back, which of course was Comey standing up and being a jackass. And, and there are other things too, of course, but what Putin did, 2020, similar stuff. And this is what Republicans get, and they're so good at, is they push these headlines because they realize the mainstream media, again, are like these little puppies running around and they'll follow any story. And so they make some ridiculous, crazy claim. And then what's going to happen? The mainstream media, the Republicans make the claim, the mainstream media has to ask Democrats about it. And we don't do that for the most part. And we've been better lately. And Biden, as we said, was better with the speech he gave, and he's been doing some of it out on the trail. He did it here in Ohio. He did some of it in Western Pennsylvania. We talked about the Republican attacks on democracy. But again, this is a story, and there are many parts to it, and they all fit together neatly in a puzzle. Judge Cannon, the Supreme Court, these people that are threatening us, Marjorie Taylor Greene kicking people. We have a group of people that don't respect democracy, that don't respect the rule of law, that want to steal elections because they believe that they are entitled to them. It all comes together. And again, we need to be filling in that story, because if we do not, then all these folks we're talking about who once maybe were Romney Republicans or, were much more Republican, but are sort of, they have their doubts and they see this stuff about Trump and they see this, stuff about Ron DeSantis, and that seems kind of cruel and, whatever. But the Republicans are just masters at giving them some bullshit reason to say, oh, well, you know what, my guys are bad, but I mean, look at Hunter Biden's laptop, and they jump back. And so we're not filling it in. If we're not providing those headlines, we're losing, which is why when some Democrats were like, hey, why are we going to hold hearings on January 6th? I was like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, they have Fox News and they have all this stuff all day long. Here, we're going to have networks who are going to be carrying our message to people. Like, jump in and do this. And I do think that that's helped change things. So again, we've gotten a lot better, because, oh my God, how a couple of years ago, how awful we were. But,
right. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm basically done. So.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying it. And the other thing is that we can't be absolutely secure in the knowledge that our message is going to get out there, because last I checked, the three major networks did not carry President Biden's speech about MAGA. Anyway, so Charlotte, since in Dahlia's absence, you are well, I mean, you always are, but often you have Dahlia as your partner, and so
I'll play second fiddle to Dahlia. That's an honor. No worries.
Wondering how you're feeling today, and what this portends for the next holy shit, 53 days I think we have left.
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling a hell of a lot better than I was 6 months ago.
Excellent.
The magic numbers are 218 and 52. We need 218 House seats, and we need 52 senators.
That's right. That's
what we got to do. And folks, this is not going to be one on January 6th. It's not going to be one on any of these investigations. It's going to be one on abortion.
Yep.
Abortion. We've already been given the cheat codes. We saw Kansas. We've seen the voter registration numbers. Everything that we know about elections tells us that if we lean into abortion as an issue, and if we get people registered to vote, and if we convince folks that the Republican Party is trying to control their private lives and dictate what they do in the bedroom, we are going to win this election. Abortion. That's where we got to focus our energy.
And I would just add that, because I think it's intimately related to that, what it means when that domino falls, because we now, in addition to Clarence Thomas is openly saying that they're going to go after all privacy rights. We have
Yeah.
Brian Kemp on tape, Jen, saying, contraception's on the table because my white evangelical fundamentalist Christian overlords may want contraception also to go the way of abortion. And Jen, I also think though, and again, you pick up wherever you want, but
I always do.
yes, you do. I do think that abortion should be the issue. Absolutely. It can't hurt, however, to hammer on the rule of law as well, because failing to do that kind of demoralizes a lot of people. We keep seeing, let's face it, Donald Trump is above the law. He has been for his entire adult life. So I think at least if we can't make it happen, we can at least let people know that it's important to us. Not, the Democrats can say it is important that these people be held accountable, and make that an issue. Just the same thing with Biden's speech. Just be fighting for us. Just be fighting for us.
Let me say I agree with you and with Charlotte. Look, there's what's getting us to go out to the polls is freedom, specifically these zealots, these religious zealots who are now running the highest court in the land, not following the law, overturning the law, taking away our rights. And there's nothing more important than your own physical body and what you do with it and how you choose to or not choose to have a family and have relationships with people. This is a humanity thing. Abortion is the lead here because it is a canary in the coal mine. This is a central privacy right. It's centered in our whole humanity, period. They can't fucking do this. Now, don't worry. The Democrats haven't forgotten about January 6th.
Right.
The hearings start up. You don't need to going out there and saying, this is terrible. We're really worried that he's going to get away with it. That's not as good as what's going to unfold in September and October. They're going to continue their work. Yep. And continuing their work is going to carry that message. So, people being angry about that will help get them to the polls as well. Because the whole world they're showing us is a world where only some lives matter and everybody else is dehumanized. And, and the trans rights piece fits into all of this, which fits into the abortion part. Are we going to be a society about human flourishing and helping everybody reach their potential and build healthy relationships around who we are and what we love and who we love? Or are some people with power going to instrumentalize the rest of us for their own desires to dominate and control and make more money? And, Democrats believe in we the people, and Republicans are trying to crush us. And I think we need to big picture it, but I'm not worried about January 5th falling out of people's minds at all.
Or the 6th for that matter.
Oh, fuck you. I can, it started on the 5th.
It started in 1948, actually. But, I think it's important. I want to end on this. Democrats want to make people's lives better, even Republicans. We want you to have a living wage, and we want you to have health care, and we want your children to be educated well, and on and on and on. The reason I think we ignore the Republican base, there are a lot of reasons, but in this particular context is because they don't care. They don't care if things are bad for them as long as the right people are suffering. So I forget them. Let's focus on people who care about human rights and who don't want cruelty to be the coin of the realm, basically. So I so appreciate everybody for showing up for yet another emergency episode of the Mary Trump Show with the Nerd Avengers, because holy shit, there are a lot of emergencies happening these days. And don't forget, we will be doing a live stream of the January 6th hearing, which I believe is on September 28th. We don't know what time yet. Really looking forward to that kicking up again. So Brian Karam, Waj Ali, Cliff Schechter, Charlotte Clymer, Jen Taub, thank you so much for being here, my friends. And I will hopefully see you all next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Anytime. Thank you again for being here. That actually made me feel better. Not that that's the point, but it's it's just been another really bad couple of news days. So it's always good to hash things out with Nerd Avengers, and thank you for being on things in the comments and helping alert us to the trolls who really should not be here. So glad we got that sorted. We will be back on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific at youtube.com/Politicon. I'm sorry, I'm just checking the date. Okay, so next week is not the January 6th hearing. So next Tuesday, we will, next Thursday, we'll have our interview show at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And as my guest is the absolutely phenomenal Dahlia Lithwick, my friend, fellow Nerd Avenger, who is publishing her new book, Lady Justice, on Tuesday of next week. So I'm so excited to talk to Dahlia about her book and about everything that's going on in this crazy country we call home. That is also at youtube.com/Politicon. And while you're on Politicon's YouTube page, please subscribe to the Politicon channel. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a way to pump up our numbers, which helps more people see the videos. And you can like the episode while you're there, comment, leave another comment if you'd like. And be sure to click on this bell because that way you will be sure to be notified anytime a new episode drops or anytime a new short video drops. Trying to do more of those. And obviously anytime there's an emergency session, which I have a strange feeling will be happening more and more frequently. Again, just as another reminder, September 28th, I believe it's a Wednesday, we will be live streaming and commentating the January 6th hearing. I'm hoping they're going to be in prime time just because we'll get more people will be watching that way. And these are so important. And of course, you can catch all of the episodes in podcast form on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please give us a 5-star review because it really, really does help other people find the show, which is what we want to have happen. So thank you again. I will see you Tuesday. Have an amazing weekend. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.
Thank you.